Guys, the NBA season is in full swing, and what better way to enhance your game day watching experience than with Underdog Fantasy? It's super easy to play. It's as simple as picking higher or lower on player stats. You can win payouts from everything from the NBA to the NFL playoffs and even the Australian Open. You play fantasy sports anyway, why not get paid for it? Minnesota is an eligible state, as you can see on the map on screen. Use our promo code TWolves and use the link in the description and get a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's a free pick just for signing up. Again, that's promo code TWolves and use the link in the description when you sign up. And thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the video. Welcome in to another Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. You know, we're kind of beat up right now, the Timberwolves, but, you know, we're doing okay.
Right, and usually we talk X's and O's, we talk strategy, but this time we're going to be talking about the trade deadline because, as we were saying before the show, the trade deadline doesn't come too often. In fact, it only comes once every year, and the Wolves got some decisions to make. Let me ask you this, straight off the bat, or I guess I should say Thursday night against the Houston Rockets, is Julius Randle on this team?
Yes.
You think so?
I don't even think it's close.
Okay. What's your reasoning behind that? And what do you think the reasoning for the Wolves keeping him right now is?
Well, I mean, I think that there's certain things you need in the NBA if you want to be successful, and we've talked about this before, is you need guys that can off the dribble get to the paint and collapse the defense, and I think you need two of them. We didn't have that last year. We had Anthony Edwards as the only guy that can really collapse the defense, can get a paint touch, you know, kick out for three. The best shot in the NBA is a kick out three. When Anthony Edwards is our only ball creator, the only guy that can create action off the dribble, it was fairly easy to just bracket him and shut him down, and we couldn't do anything. Like it was a big weakness of ours, and Tim Conley went out there and he solved that by bringing in Julius Randle. Julius Randle is a guy that can, you know, if you like his game or not, but he gets to the paint at will. He collapses the defense off the dribble. And that's just I think that's the premier skill set right now in the NBA. I think obviously Luka Doncic is a monster, but I think that's one reason why, you know, the Lakers are so happy to make a move for him is now they have two guys that can break down the defense off the dribble. And I think you need that, you know, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Luka, Kyrie, those types of action you need. So I don't think that unless we can bring in another guy that can, you know, give you almost 20 points a game and be, you know, trouble off the dribble that can break down your defense, I don't see it happening. I think Randle, I mean, like I've said before, this guy's been a 25, 8-5 guy for like the last 3 years. Like 2 of those years he was all NBA, a couple of them he's an all-star. Like this isn't, I think the fan base has it a little off in the first 120, 30 days that he's been here. And I think Conley's playing a slower game than that. If we blow it up even more right now, like what are we expecting this year? It's going to be, you know, figuring the new guys out for the rest of the year. And it's pretty much a wash of a season. I just don't see it happening. Not to mention it's so damn hard to trade when you're in the second apron.
Right. Yeah, it does make it difficult. I just want to throw out, and I don't even know if these are plausible. I don't even know if the teams involved would be willing to do this. And you'd have to throw in some second round picks as well.
Yeah.
But I found 4 potential Randle trades. And like I said, I don't know one of these. There are reports that the Bucks are interested in Kuzma for Middleton. There's stuff going on all the time. But I'm going to give you 4 potential trades that all work according to the trade machine. Let me know which one you'd want the best, and then I'll tell you the Twitter results.
And I will say, even though I don't think that Randall is going to be traded, I will trade anybody on my roster if the trade is correct. So, like, I have no problem moving.
All right, so here are the 4 trades that worked.
Okay.
From the Bulls, this is all for Julius Randle in like some seconds.
Yep.
Nikola Vucevic and Kobe White. From the Pelicans, CJ McCollum. From the Wizards, Kuzma and Valanciunas. And then from Portland, Simmons and Sharp. Which one would you take if it was on the table?
Simmons and Sharp would be my first one. Kobe White and the big guy
Vucevic
would be my second. My last would be McCollum, and then the Wizards one. I might take McCollum over the Wizards one.
I think I would too. I think that just the fact that CJ McCollum, I know it's been a little bit, but he's been there before. Like, he's been to the Western Conference Finals when they made that one run. I love Shaedon Sharp. I think he's an absolute scorer. Now, the question is, what happens if we do something like that? What happens with a guy like Rob Dillingham? Does he fall back in our rotation here, which has gotten a lot younger? I know we can talk about it, but we've seen a lot of Jalen Clark, and we've seen Luka Garza, who hasn't played that well, and we've seen Rob Dillingham in this lineup. Like we said on this podcast that we would need to. We're going to need guys to step up when guys go down. We're not going to have a clean sheet injury-wise. But I think of those trades, for me, I don't know, the Vucevic and White one. I really like Kobe White. I've seen him destroy us time after time after time. And
he's also a guy that can get to the paint. He's a guy that can create off the dribble. And if we lose Randall, one thing people don't understand, everyone's like, well, Nas will just step in. Well, you're seeing what happens when Nas just steps in. Sure, Nas is fine, but now you don't have 16 to 25 points off the bench. And now your bench has nothing, and you've got Luka Garza out there. Like, there's a domino effect here. Yeah, you can replace Randall with Nas, just like I said last year. Replacing Nas with a Cat with Nas, I think, wouldn't be that big of a step down. But what's a step down is Nas from the guy behind him.
Right.
So unless you think Luka Garza can give you 20 to 25 solid NBA minutes at power forward or center, you need to find another big if you're moving Randall, so that, if we're looking to win this year.
Right. And that's the other argument, to bring up another guy. And I know this is the longest of long shots, but you bring up a $51 million guy like Kevin Durant. I mean, that would be the ultimate win now move. Like,
he makes more. He can't, it won't work.
Multi-team it would. Multi-team trade. It would. Believe me, I tried on the trade machine to do it.
I believe it. Yeah.
It's very difficult to do. But if you bring in another team, a 3 or 4 team trade.
He says he wants out too.
He does say he wants out. And I don't know. I feel like this is the Wolves' chance to strike when the iron is hot. Because we say it time and time again. When are the Wolves going to have a player like Anthony Edwards going into his prime?
Right.
When are you going to have the opportunity to build around a guy like that? It doesn't happen that often in Minnesota Timberwolves history. They had it once with Kevin Garnett. They had it one time with Kevin Garnett.
And did a poor job.
Yeah, they really did they did a good job for 1 year. Yeah. They did a good job for 1 year getting Sprewell and Cassell, and that worked for 1 year, but after that, it was a complete disaster. So that's the only thing. Like, the Wolves got to decide right now, and Tim Connolly has to decide, is it time to swing for the fences?
Right.
Or is it time to let a guy like Jaden McDaniels, who I know we've talked about it extensively on this podcast. There's a video that you can go and check out on why maybe to trade McDaniels rather than Randall. Is it time to let the guys grow? And hey, if we win a playoff series, great. If we don't, we still got these young guys growing up. Or is it time to go all in? Is it time to use a big contract like Julius Randle and try to get someone in here to try to win a championship right now? Because you got to remember, Anthony Edwards, he's only 23. He's only 23 years old. Yep. Like, it's not like it's a ticking clock with Anthony Edwards. No. Now, obviously, the management wants to say we're going all in right now, but is that the right move?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think that, I mean, it depends what the move is, of course, but
right.
Anthony Edwards, in my mind, I love the guy, but I don't think that he is at the point where he's a complete enough player to be competing for a championship. Like, because if we compete for a championship, in theory, he's our best player,
Right.
I don't think he's ready for that yet. And that's not a knock on him. He's just really, really young. Like Jordan, LeBron, like all these guys didn't get their first ring, Curry, till like their 6th, 7th year in the league.
Right.
So, he's got 2 or 3 more years to really start figuring stuff out before he can start maybe making that step. Obviously, there's no like linear progression for everybody. They progress at different rates, but there's definitely some things like that he needs to work on. I mean, turnovers, we didn't talk about it last episode, but I mean, there's things he needs to do to do better. So to think that we're even ready, like, I think sometimes people get too excited about what happened last year, and I think they should be excited, but we weren't like this dominant team. Like, we were solid all the time. And that is a skill set, to be solid all the time. But, we had flaws last year too. So
to be completely honest, I do think we could have beat the Mavs because we were right there. There were games where we were up 5 with a minute and a half left. I think if we win some of those games, maybe though this series goes a completely different way, which goes into this season where in crunch time, the Wolves have had the most crunch time games and are 13 and 18 in clutch time games, which is horrible. Terrible. But anyway, I'll say this. I think if we go to the NBA Finals, I think the results looks pretty much the same as the Mavs series with the Celtics. Yeah. I don't think that team was ready to beat the Celtics yet. I really don't think so. Now, obviously, it's great to go to the finals, right? Like that's a huge accomplishment. That's a feather in the cap. That's something that the fan base will never forget. It'll sell tickets for years to come. But realistically, of winning the finals, I don't think that team was ready yet.
No, and that's okay to say. Like, we're a pretty young team, like it's okay to not be ready, and that's fine. And I don't think we're ready right now either. That's why, like, if you were talking about that Portland deal, which I talked about that same deal for Karl Anthony Towns last year. I would have done. I love those two guys. They're young. But like Simmons has been around enough where he's not just a young prospect. Like, he's a legit 20-point scorer. He's a legit 3-point shooter that can play off the dribble or off the ball or on the ball. I think he'd be great. Simmons is an athletic freak small forward. We could plug him in, and now we actually have a small forward type size guy that we can develop maybe. I mean, I would like it. It would be turning the clock back a little ways to Anthony Edwards' timeline and saying, okay, we actually we want to hit our peak in 3 years. Opposed to today. So I don't know if that's a bad idea. It might be a great idea.
Right. The other option, actually, let me take it this way. Do you think, now obviously this might sound biased coming from a team who is in the second apron. Do you think that the NBA needs to look at his second apron restrictions? Because now obviously it might not hamper like a big market team like the Knicks or the Lakers or something like that, which, by the way, the Lakers
just got in the second apron right now.
What's that?
They just entered the second apron in this trade, so I think we're going to find out if it's going to affect them in a couple of years.
Right.
I think teams, even though
what I'm saying is I feel like the second apron could hurt small market teams that are trying to keep up with the big guys. It's the same
Right.
arguments like with the MLB, right? Where you're always trying to catch up with the Yankees. And maybe it seemed like the Rays make it into the World Series, but you're never going to be the same as the Yankees. Do you think that the NBA needs to look at the second apron restrictions and maybe loosen them a little bit?
You know, I don't think so. I think the problem that they had was they sprung those restrictions on teams like next year type thing. So rosters that were already built and that were already constructed, that were already known were going to be expensive, but the penalties weren't there that much.
Right.
All of a sudden now those penalties are there. Like where every one of your draft picks is the last pick in the first round from now on out. Like that's what happens if you're in the second apron more than 2 years in a row. Like these penalties are so high and teams weren't ready for it. Like if we would have known that that was the case, we probably would have managed our roster differently the 2 or 3 years prior to that. So I think it would have been smart if they would have said in 4 years from now, these are the restrictions. So teams could have time to get around that. Now teams are kind of on a scramble and it's pretty sloppy and ugly. But I don't know. I don't hate the idea because in theory, it's keeping the middle teams, giving them more chance and not letting teams just spend like crazy, like Golden State has been. So,
right.
I think we need a couple
I don't hate
this to see.
I don't hate the second apron either. It's just really putting us in a bind right now. And I don't know, the whole theory of getting rid to take another way, getting rid of Julius Randle for expiring salaries to at that point try to keep a guy like Naz Reid or Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm actually on the boat of keeping Nickeil Alexander-Walker and not trading him right now for a couple of reasons. One, his contract isn't that big anyway, so it's not like we could get much for him. Correct. Two, I think the guy that is more extendable right now, maybe to a real contender, is maybe a guy like Mike Conley to be a backup point guard off the bench. Now, obviously, that would contend with DiVincenzo coming back and running this as the first unit, but use a mid-level salary like Conley and get some contracts in here, or maybe even throw him in with the Randall trade and get someone bigger in here. I could see the Wolves doing that. One guy that I have seen the Wolves having some interest yet with, and honestly, salary-wise, he's not a hard get because he's just on like a minimum contract. Yabusele from the 76ers, I've heard rumored. And honestly, if we're just looking at the pure numbers of it, a guy who appears to be out of the lineup anyway and isn't, I don't think, on Chris Finch's good list. He's kind of in the dog pound right now. Because honestly, with the salaries, you could make this work. Trade a second-round pick and Josh Minot for Yabusele. You could make that work. Now, would the Sixers do that? I think it depends if the Sixers think they can re-sign him, and I think it depends if the Sixers are serious to make a run this year, or if they're trying to get younger. I don't know. I don't know where Embiid goes, but what do you think of Yabusele?
You know, I know very little about him, to be honest. I know that he played on the French team, and I know when I was looking up similar players' stats to Jaden McDaniels earlier this year, like guys that were just kind of people you've never heard of, he was a guy that had almost the exact same stats as Jaden McDaniels until recently. Like he's been playing now starters minutes. I see he's 29 years old, so he's not a young guy.
Nope.
But yeah, he's a banger. Like I know that he's been putting up really big numbers in the last couple of games. I've been noticing that. So he had a couple of 20-point games in a row. Yeah, I would take him. Any sort of talent would be great. I would be surprised if we could get him for just Minot in a second, but if we could, that'd be great. Yeah, I really like the idea of moving Conley. Like Conley's on the schedule again, I think next year for $10 million or something like that. And in reality, we don't really need him anymore. Like,
no, I'm done. I'm done with Conley.
Thanks for your service. And sometimes, like Tim Connolly did the same thing with Pat Beverly last year, or in his last years. He gave him a multi-year deal with no intention of keeping him.
Right.
But the intention is now when you trade Mike Conley, he's guaranteed another year of NBA salary. It's just kind of a good move for the team to do.
Hmm.
Because now, like, it's not just a one and done and the guy's out of the league. Like, he's got a whole nother year at 10 million. So maybe that's the point. Maybe we gave him that couple year deal so that we can move him and just kind of do good by him. But
Right.
for a team that needs to cut about 25 million as quick as we can, cutting 10 off from him would be pretty nice.
Yeah, I agree. And the big stat that comes up when I look at Mike Conley's contract, which you are correct, he has another year, 25, 26, is he's going to be 38 years old. And we are not talking about LeBron James here.
Yeah.
We're talking about an aging guard whose best days are behind him. He's shooting much worse from behind the three-point arc this season. Yes, he had 10 assists or 9 assists last game, but he was very ineffective from behind the three-point line. And it feels like Conley, the only thing he brings is a little bit of stability. He doesn't bring playmaking. He doesn't bring attacking the rim. His floater isn't that good. His floater game has been terrible this year. I would love to see the stats on that to see what his actual statistics floater game is. But for some reason that went away. I'm not advocating yet to put in a true point guard like Rob Dillingham in crunch time. Maybe he should have against the Wizards, but just a playmaker or an attacker. So we need somebody better than Mike Conley in late games. It's just the fact. If we're going to do anything this year, we just need a different type of player.
Especially if Randall and DiVincenzo are out, because now you've got two more guys that can get to the basket off the dribble. And, I mean, you'll notice it these next games if Randall's not playing. It's pretty noticeable when Anthony Edwards isn't out there. Our offense can't really do anything. Like, it just swings the ball around the top, and there's nobody willing to, like, make a push to score unless Dillingham's in there. So in the fourth quarter, like I was saying earlier, you need either Rob Dillingham and Anthony Edwards in there, or you need Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, because you need two different human beings that have the willingness to try to score. Like, all our other guys are pass first or a little passive. You can't have that. You need to have guys that have a little bit of that dog in them that want to go get a bucket. So, I think Dillingham needs to play more in the fourth. And I think, Tim Connolly kind of messed up some of the last couple games not doing that.
I totally agree with you. So, I don't know. I asked you earlier if I thought that, or if you thought that Julius Randle was going to be on this team come Thursday. By the way, he's probably not going to play Thursday either way, because I was looking at the ESPN timeline for injury. It says like February 10th. So it's still going to be a week. And then DiVincenzo is still going to be a couple weeks as well. So really at this point, or in the current time, we're not getting anything out of the Cat trade, which is just a fact of life right now.
Yeah.
I think my prediction is that Julius Randle is still on this team. I really don't think they're going to trade him. As much as I put on those trades like for Simmons and Sharp, which is what I would like. Kuzma, not as much. CJ McCollum, I don't know. I just feel like Chris Finch likes Julius Randle, and I think the Wolves still believe, whether right or not, I think they still believe that they can get that 25 points per game, about 5 assists per game, close to 9 rebound guy. I think they think that with more time, I think they think that they can pull that out.
I mean, that was last year. Like, we're not talking about this was 6 years ago. Like, that was literally last year and the year before that. So logic is to say we should be able to get that guy.
And I got to be honest. I was in Phoenix for that game against Phoenix. He looked like that guy. There are times where he looks like that guy.
Yeah. I mean, I really think there's a comfort level that's gaining. And I think I don't think it's crazy to think that you can't it's not a video game. You can't just plug a guy in and everything's going to be working great. Like, Anthony Edwards has a little bit of, diva to his game. Like, how many times do you see him drive, the defense collapse, and he doesn't drop off for an easy dunk to Rudy? Like,
Right.
that plays there all the time, but he wants to score. So, I mean, there's going to be some figuring it out between those two. But I don't see Tim Connolly making the huge trade he did just to turn around and flip a piece that fast. But, he's surprised us before. So maybe he's got something up his sleeve.
Right. And I'll leave you with one last analogy.
Okay.
Or not really an analogy, but an example. Look at how it worked out with Booker, Beal, and Kevin Durant in Phoenix, to give a recent example. On paper, you put those three guys together, it should be gangbusters. For example, the Phoenix Suns went to the NBA Finals in 2022, had a 2-0 lead, and then ended up losing to the Bucks. They were that close, and that was without Bradley Beal, and that was without Kevin Durant. And then you add Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, and what happens? You lose in the second round and the first round. It's not necessarily adding stars to an equation. That's not what it's all about. Has it worked in the past? Yes. Look at Shaq and Kobe, right? Like it's worked before. Look at LeBron, Bosh, and Wade. It has worked before, but it doesn't always work to the way that you think it's going to work, or the way that it would, like in a 2K game or something like that.
Right. I mean, a lot of it is skill set building. If you've got three guys like Durant, Booker, and Beal that all get their buckets in the mid range and all similar off the dribble and all similar off similar actions, yeah, you can't all play three guys trying to do the same thing in the same time. Like if you played Joel Embiid and Shaquille O'Neal on the same team, it just might not work that good. It doesn't mean they're not talented. It's just those skill sets don't work well together. So yeah, it's about finding guys that, cover other people's mistakes, or, can be, accents to another person's abilities. You don't want multiples of the same thing. So yeah, we're going to see what happens. I trust in Tim Connolly. Like he's done this before. I think he knows what he's doing. And if anything, at any of the trade deadlines or any major trades have taught me over my, 30 years of being a basketball fan, is if you've heard about it, and you've heard people talking about it, assume that there's no chance that one's going to happen. Right. When trades happen, it's something that you didn't think about or ever hear about, and it's going to surprise you.
Right, absolutely. And I just want to put Wolves fans, I don't even know if this needs to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. Tim Connolly is not going to trade Anthony Edwards in the middle of the night to the Lakers.
No,
it's not going to happen. That was a 1-and-1. That was a one-time situation where Nico Harris was worried about Luka Doncic's his conditioning. He didn't want to give him. He didn't want to. Yeah, he didn't want to give him a long-term contract for some whatever reason. I'm sorry. You could say it's defense.
No, I think it's money. I really do think it's an underhanded deal with the new owners from Dallas, who happen to be from Las Vegas, who happen to be casino billionaires. They bought out Mark Cuban, who wouldn't have allowed this sort of deal for anyone. And I could see them having a little bit of a taste of this new expansion team and this NBA team in Las Vegas, these new Dallas owners. And this might be some deal to get a superstar to LA to do, you scratch the NBA's back, they'll scratch yours come expansion time. It seems too fishy. There's no way basketball-wise this makes any sense at all on any level. So I don't buy any of those excuses, other than those are what people are trying to say to get people to accept what just happened.
Yeah, the fact that they went to one other team, but they didn't turn it into a bidding war. And they said the reason they didn't put it into a bidding war was to try and to diminish fan backlash. Well, good job. Yeah. You literally got season ticket holders asking for refunds.
It's not a good look. And supposedly LA talked them down. Like the original deal was like 3 first-round picks. Dalton Connect was involved. Like all of the Lakers assets, and the Lakers brass talked him down, said, Luka is a little chubby and he does like to drink. Maybe you're right. I don't know if we're going to risk all this. And they talked the package down. It's insane. But hey, I'd rather have a bad Dallas team or a worse Dallas team than a better Dallas team.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Now, you know what? We'll get into it later. There's so much to talk about. By the way, we are going to be doing, or at least we're going to try to do, if the Wolves make a move, we're going to try to do a show on Thursday, just breaking down whatever trade happens with the Timberwolves, even if it's a small one, even if we get Shake Milton back. We'll be here to try and break it all down for you. I believe 100%. The trade deadline ends at about 3:00, something like that. So I'll be trying to go live right after that. I may have Chris, I may not. We'll find out, but it's going to be a fun day. This is almost like Christmas Day, the trade deadline. I love it. I watched the whole thing. I'm glued to ESPN and just all the little. It's crazy that so many have happened already.
And the one that everyone thought was going to happen first isn't one of them.
Right. Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too. And this is the Running with the Timberwolves podcast on the Believe Sports Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and or Apple. And make sure to sign up for Underdog Fantasy using the link in the description and using the promo code TWolves. It helps build the channel. And as always, go Wolves.